Welcome to the India Revival Mission. Today I'm speaking with a gentleman who is the doyen of the FMCG space in India, a corporate giant who understands how the Indian consumer works. And this conversation with him is very important in the context of what will revive India, because the big question now is, will the consumer return? We are a consumption-led economy, especially over the last few decades. And one of the key ways we can actually pull ourselves out of the coronavirus-induced economic gloom is to start spending more. How will that happen? Where is the growth path ahead? And moreover, what are the opportunities to innovate in the middle of such life-changing situations like we are facing today? So please join me in welcoming Mr. Harsh Mariwala, the chairman of Marico, on the show today. Mr. Mariwala, glad to have you on ET Now, and thank you for speaking with us. We've spoken to you after a long time, and the world has changed in the meantime. So let me start by just getting your sense of where we stand today.
So I think the key thing is, some of the trends which were happening at its own pace have really got accelerated. Something which was going to happen over the next 5 years has happened in the last 3 or 6 months. And all of us have got used to a new way of working, whether it is working from home or whether it's ordering goods on e-commerce or whether it is e-consultation with your doctor or e-prescription or for children e-learning. And all of us had that resistance. Why should we do it? It's better to meet personally. But I think this last 6-7 months have shown that it's very easy and very efficient to follow this. And for each and every meeting, one need not take the trouble of calling somebody else from a long distance and waste time. And this is equally effective. So I think this has taught us that a habit of working in a different way. And I'm saying the habit because if this had happened only for a period of 15 days or a month, we would not have formed that habit. But the fact that this has happened over a period of 7-8 months, and it may continue for the next few months at least, it is deeply ingrained. And once you make that a habit, then it's very easy for you to continue that habit. I'm not discounting the benefit of socially meeting people in business. So I think there is a certain merit in relationships, in personal networking, in socializing. But a lot of work, a lot of initiatives can be undertaken through the e-route. I have not been to office for the last 8 months, but the business is going on very smoothly. So I'm wondering whether, do I need to go to office every day? The earlier mindset was I had to do it. Do I have to call people for interview? Earlier mindset, whether it was half an hour interview or 1 hour interview from people who be coming in even from out of town. Now I would feel very, very guilty if I had to call somebody for interview, So it's taught us a new way of looking at the way we work, I think to me, that's the big learning. And that has opened up a lot of opportunities for all digital businesses. So e-learning, you've seen companies like Byju's valuations hitting about $10 billion. You've seen e-consultation taking off in a big way. E-learning, e-com, I think the overall sales through the e-com channel has really hit the roof. And even in FMCG also, the sales have doubled or trebled in the last 6 months. So these trends have got accelerated, which is a good thing. And I think they will continue, may not be to the same extent as it is now, but these trends will continue. The pace of change may not be doubling or trebling in future, but the trend will definitely continue. It has got accelerated because of COVID. And then a whole host of opportunities have opened up, for people, whether it's because of China relationships and supply chain relating to China or overall consumer habit shifting, whether it is the consumer is looking at more hygienic products or they are looking at products which are good for immunity, or the overall issue of health, whether it's mental health or physical health or healthy foods. I think these are some of the trends which have happened because of these. And I reckon that they will continue these trends. These trends have got accelerated, as I said earlier, and they're healthy. And finally, I think overall sensitivity to environment has also improved. So sustainability, environment, what are we doing to the
Yeah.
environment? I think because all of us lived at least for 2, 3 months because of lockdown, it was much more, what air we were breathing was much more purer. So I think everybody's realized that it's very important to live in an environment
Yes.
which was healthy environment.
Well, that's one part where I hope something persists, because already there are reports that pollution levels have gone up. But I want to catch on to something you said, Mr. Mariwala, that I found very interesting, which is
Mm.
about working from home or working
Yeah.
from remote locations becoming more of a norm. Now, Microsoft recently has moved some of its employees permanently to a work from home situation. More and
Yeah.
more companies in the tech space are beginning to do that. Do you
True.
think it's something that will actually catch on in India, or you will see people gradually coming back to offices, especially in a city like Mumbai once local trains, etc., open up?
So I think a lot will depend on the sector you are in. If you are in a sector where work can be done on the computer by you alone, uh, I think it's okay to work from home. But if it means personal meetings, interactions, then one can do it on Zoom. I'm not saying one cannot do it, but there will be certain attraction of meeting personally. So a lot will depend on the kind of sectors you are in. But nonetheless, even in FMCG sector, which I am in, I can't see a situation where people will work from home. Maybe some jobs can be done from home because then you are saying real estate and you don't need to employ people in Bombay. You can employ people in cities which are lower cost cities. If you are, the big challenge will be, how do you ensure that the people working from home are uh, are able to be productive, because there are some, shall I say, there are some temptations at home which one should not fall in, whether it's the food you have it at home, or whether it's playing with the kids, or some domestic. So I think one has to have a separate kind of a space to work from. And some of them, these are real temptations. The fact that one has worked for last 7, 8 months,
Yes.
it is tempting, to eat a little bit more because you're having food and then have a short nap. So I think a lot will depend on how do you measure
Yeah.
productivity of people, because you don't want productivity to go down. You may say that working from home is good, people save time, but the
Yes.
organizations and companies cannot have a situation where the overall productivity goes down because people are working from home and spending time not on working but something else.
Well, it's a catch-22. Let me turn, your attention, Mr. Mariwala, to the current economic scenario. You've enlisted
Yeah,
all of the positives that have come out of the
yeah,
coronavirus pandemic, and you've really seen the glass is
yeah,
half full.
yeah.
But it's not all a
Yes,
rosy picture, is it?
I
We've
agree.
seen
Yeah,
quarter one growth contracting nearly 24%. The
yeah, yeah.
year may end to 9.5% of contraction as
Correct,
per the Reserve Bank of India. Um,
correct.
for the FMCG space, it's
Yeah,
been sort of fair sailing. But
yeah,
overall, for the economy,
yeah.
do you think that we will take another 2-3 years to recover, especially your SMEs, your MSMEs, your smaller, more vulnerable businesses?
So I think, as they said, this whole recovery is K-shaped. There are certain sectors which are doing well, like FMCG, pharma, and a few others. And there are some sectors which are dependent on people visiting or being together, like airlines, hotels, restaurants, gyms. They are doing very badly. And I think that divide will continue for some time until we're able to find a vaccine. So I would say it's very difficult to answer your question in one, whether it will come back or not. In FMCG and pharma, it's already back to almost normal. I think we need to see whether are we going to grow now. And actually, we have given one guidance after our second quarter was over, that we are actually growing in the second quarter compared to the same period last year. So it's quite good. I think the bounce back has been quite positive in these sectors, and the fact that things are going to improve further from whatever one has read in the papers, that they're going to allow more of airlines, there's going to allow more of hotels, restaurants. I think people will just start going out and getting used to living in this environment after taking precautions. I'm not saying people should just be going out without masks, but I think if you take precautions in terms of masks and social distancing and washing and all that, then I think there is scope for one to lead a far more normalized life, and one need not stay at home. And even things like trains and all are likely to start in Bombay. So I think the fact that all this is going to get normalized. I'm just putting one condition that it should not lead to huge number of spike in cases, because otherwise, if that happens, then people will, I mean, the government will again clamp down on opening, and they will have a lockdown. So I think a lot will depend on people's how do they view this, and they have to view it responsibly. And it's very important that they don't take it lightly. I agree that there has been a huge degree of frustration because of the fact that everybody's cooped up in a house, and you need to just take out that frustration, but don't go overboard. I mean, just look at something which is positive compared to what we have today, and don't say that I want to go and hug my friends, I want to remove my mask. I think if people start doing that, and that's what happened in Europe, where they opened up bars and they started having parties, and you start seeing the spikes. I think the key thing is, I think the people should realize that this is something which is going to stay for some time. It has to lead to an altered lifestyle. And only by leading an altered lifestyle, the economy will improve. If people are not living responsibility, then the government will be forced to again declare some restrictions, lockdown, and that again will have an impact on economic growth. So I don't blame the government itself. I think the people also have to be equally responsible. Yes, you can demand from the government, please open up and please do things, but at the same time, you can't say, okay, now it's open, so I can do whatever I want. I think there is a very, very important need for individuals to behave responsibly and in a mature manner. And if they do that, then I see a further improvement in the overall economic climate. The demand will increase, and with the stimulus package, which you told me earlier, the government is just announced today, I think that will lead to a higher degree of demand, which will increase over a period of time the capacity utilization and lead to investments.
Let me talk about that stimulus package which was announced on Monday, where the finance minister has, in a sense, incentivized government employees to go out and spend ahead of the festive season. And it's quite innovative in the Indian context, because they're going to be vouchers encashable against annual leave allowances, which employees, government employees, can take once in 4 years. It's aimed at a lot of employees who have not lost their jobs or not had any pay cuts and have not been able to travel either, but they must spend it by March 2021 on items which attract a certain amount of GST, and that too digitally. Do you think that incentives like this will actually push consumption during the festive season? Should private companies also start doing things like this? Because you will also have a lot of employees who have leaves accumulated and can't really take them.
So I think I've not fully read it. So subject to whatever I've heard from you, my comments are subject to that. And if there are some other fine print conditions which are preventing people to spend, I am preserving their right. But from whatever I've heard, I think it looks very interesting, the scheme, because of 2 or 3 reasons. Number one, the amount is 10,000. Number two, they have said that it's above a certain percentage GST. So automatically I reckon people will be looking at big ticket items like durables, which are required in today's environment to be at home, whether it is household cleaners or washing machines or air conditioners or even robots to clean houses, because you don't get maids these days. So I think this is very interesting, and most of them have, I think, GST rates about 12%. I can't see 10,000 rupees being spent on cars. So I think the key beneficiaries, in my opinion, will be, I think, durable sector, because 10,000, you don't want to spread it over many items. But clearly, I think the government employees who are getting this benefit, they will take this benefit straight away. It is their own money, I mean, because ultimately it's the leave which has got accumulated, and they are, in a way, encashing that leave travel allowance. So it's their own money. So I don't think they have to repay it back, from what I understand from you, correct? So considering that, I think they will take this and they will, I think mostly.
And in fact, it will be even more than 10,000. It depends
Okay.
on the bracket they are in.
Okay, so it more than, so people will spend that money. I think they will spend it on durables which are required at home, you know. So home durables is something which I personally think, based on whatever you told me,
Sure.
should get good traction because of that. And it's innovative, it's good, and if it is good, I think private sector organizations also, why not? Because ultimately it's not uh, costing you in terms of profit and loss account. At the most, it is a liquidity issue for you if you are a private. So I think organizations which don't have a liquidity problem, private organizations, may also do something similar. Um, so I think if that happens, then the number of employees who get this will be much larger. So the government has unleashed something which I think can be scaled up by the private sector organization. It can have a multiplier effect then. And if so much money is being spent, I'm not calculated on what be the overall magnitude of spend in terms of government employees and all, but I reckon it could be fairly decent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. It will be a multiplier effect. Just one more word on, the private space taking up something like this. Do you think it's important now to put money in the hands of employees? Because it's not just about employees having money, it's also about a mindset which, pushes consumption. If there is a fear of a possible job loss or a reduction in income, if the economic uncertainty prevails, then people tend not to consume beyond the bare necessities. That mindset needs to be changed. And do you think private sector can take a big step in doing this, in reinforcing that confidence?
Yeah, I think it's, as I said earlier, it's not a P&L hit to the private sector. It's a liquidity issue, and most organizations, if they have liquidity, those who are falling short of liquidity, they may not be able to do so. But many organizations have liquidity, so they may think of doing something similar.
Okay. Mr. Mariwala, I want to get your sense about the overall, steps that have been taken to help the economy so far, between the Reserve Bank of India and between what the government has announced. They've already announced one set of fiscal measures. Another package is being expected that will come from the government for vulnerable sectors.
Yeah.
There are many who say that it's not nearly enough as a percentage of the GDP or looking at the plight that India finds itself in. Do you think there is a need to push the accelerator right now to make sure that we recover quickly?
So I think you must understand, you can't compare India with other developed markets, because there are a much higher degree of benefits. If in UK you go to a restaurant, then the government almost bears a substantial part of the bill. I don't think we have those ways and means situation where we can equate ourselves with the developed countries where their overall financial situation at the economic level, at the government level, is far better than in India. So you have to first put yourself into what India is and how much can we stretch ourselves and not compare with those other countries. Having said that, the first set of reforms were more on the supply side, but now based on today's, I think it's more on demand side, which is very good because ultimately it's the demand which will increase the need to increase production, which will lead to supply side kind of initiatives. So I like this. I thought the government would do something like reduction of GST for a period of maybe 3 months, and use that as an opportunity to drive demand. But this also is quite innovative, and I don't know what else is there in mind, and I don't know the fine print. But the fact that the government is looking at demand side stimulus is a very positive sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one part we should really speak about, and what has taken everyone by surprise, is the kind of revival in the rural sector. and the rural economy, really.
Yeah.
What have you seen, which sort of underlines the same story in your businesses? Have you also seen this trend, and can you talk about that?
Yeah, I would say the rural demand or the rural growth is higher than the urban growth to some extent. But it's not something where it's not a huge difference, The rural growth will be marginally higher than the urban growth, and partly it could be driven by better agriculture and some of the money which is being pumped in by the government through infrastructure building and all that. But I think that's a good sign, the rural which requires higher growth, because I think the per capita income in the rural areas would be much lower than in the urban areas. So I think that's good sign that the rural is growing, And if rural economy grows, then all the migration which has happened in India to urban cities, if there are more jobs created in rural India, then to that extent the pressure for the rural households to come to big cities and work in such conditions would go down. So I think it's a very healthy sign that the rural economy is growing, and it's growing at a little bit higher rate than the urban economy.
But do you think it's sustainable, Mr. Mariwala? What can we do? This is a question I often ask when I speak to a variety of people. That is great. The rural economy is growing. There could be, a sweet spot coming together. Why we've seen a resurgence there. But how do we build on it? How do we sustain it?
So I think it's very important to drive innovations in India, whether it's urban or rural, I think there's a great opportunity to drive innovation in India. So a sector like agriculture, there are huge opportunities for innovating in the sector of agriculture. Our productivity in most cases compared to the global productivity is very low. And can we use systems, technologies, whether it's IT or best farming practices or other technologies which will help the farmer increase yield? Separately, I think the whole reforms in the area of farm reform which have happened in the recent past is also a good thing, because I think it leads to disintermediation of the trade, and the farmers can directly sell it to the corporate sector. A lot of goods get changes hands at various levels, and it adds to the cost of transportation and warehousing, and each middleman wanting their own share of margins. So I think the flexibility which the government has come out with and given to the farmer of not selling it through the APMC markets is good, I think. And we are not saying that the farmer will suffer, because farmers can also sell it to the trader. But in addition to that, they will be allowed to sell it to the corporate and other direct buyers. So I would say that I'll go back to, if we have to drive rural, we need to improve education, we need to improve healthcare, and that's where innovation comes in. And I think we in Marico also are playing our role in terms of driving innovation in healthcare, education, as well as in agriculture, because we have been running a Marico Innovation Foundation, which is to fuel innovation in both business and social areas. And I really think that innovation can play a huge role. We saw what happened in case of mobile phones, how we quick jumped, earlier, 10 years back or 15 years back, before mobiles came in, it was a big problem to get a telephone connection. And now, everybody is just connected. So the impact it has had on our lives and the overall growth is huge. And I can say for sure that, whether it's education, and now with this e-learning happening, or whether it is healthcare with e-consultation happening, or agriculture productivity, technology and innovation can play a very important role. And I think that's what we are trying to do. We just had our award function 2 days back, where we awarded some very interesting organizations which were doing excellent work in the area of innovation. And there's one player who's come out with robots which clean the scavenging, So scavengers' job is eliminated, and they are being trained as to operate this scavenging machine. And can you imagine people have to go into gutters and all that, and they had limited lives. They had to breathe poisonous gases. They would go after having drugs or alcohol. Their lives are completely transformed because now they're operators. They don't have to go in also. So I think there are gems of innovations in India which are happening on very small scale by small entrepreneurs, and I think our job is to identify them and help them scale up. And if we do all that innovations in these areas, I am sure that the rural uh, economy will improve substantially, and we have to ensure that the rural improves, because if it doesn't, the so-called the so-called demographic dividend, you may call it, or the youth, I mean, they'll feel frustrated if they don't have interesting jobs. So it's very important that we need to create interesting jobs. They would not want to work in a manual kind of a job in a farm, but if that same person is given something which is to operate through a machine or whatever else, value-added thinking job, I'm sure they will be more than willing to be involved in that environment.
Absolutely. Mr. Mariwala, last question to round off our conversation. What has been your biggest personal learning through this time, which I think has been a once in a lifetime, experience for everyone? What do you think you will take away from this?
So my takeaway is, first of all, I think we should not get disheartened. This too will pass, and we should look at it at a personal level. I think I always feel grateful compared to what some other people have gone through, whether it's a migrant labor or those who are employed in sectors which are not doing well. We are so fortunate, and we can't go on complaining that we have to sit at home and things like that. Yeah, sometimes it is frustrating, but compare yourself with those migrant laborers who had to walk back home hundreds and thousands of miles, and you will feel good about it. Secondly, once this passes, you will see a huge emergence of newer opportunities, and there will be consolidation of players in the industry. Those who are doing well, I think their market shares will improve, those who are capable. And I think to that extent, if you're running a good company, then your chances of getting higher market share will improve definitely. There will be some shakeout definitely, because some sectors have not been able to perform. So there will be some shakeout, and I think that will provide further opportunities for stronger players, for more capable players to improve their market standing and leverage all the opportunities and also innovative options which are emerging because of COVID.
Absolutely. It's been a learning period for all of us, and we can just hope that the revival is quicker than is anticipated. Meanwhile, we will end with your message, this too shall pass. Here's to better times. Thank you so much, Mr. Mariwala, for speaking with us today.
Thank you.